Okay, so when you hear the word yoga, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For a lot of us, it's probably those physical poses, right? But that's really just the tip of the iceberg. At its core, yoga is this whole system of ethics and mental training, all designed to tackle life's biggest questions. And what's so fascinating is that it's not the only system that did this. Today, we're going to look at two other huge traditions, Buddhism and Jainism, and see how they created their own incredible paths using a lot of the same core ideas. We're going to see how they all tried to answer one of the biggest questions there is.
Yeah, that question. Why is there so much suffering in the world? It's something we all wonder about, right? It's been echoing through history for thousands of years. And this isn't just a modern anxiety. For the ancient thinkers in India, this wasn't a game. It wasn't just a philosophical thought experiment. This was the problem, the central challenge they were absolutely determined to solve. So let's kind of set the stage here. I want you to picture it. We're in 6th century BCE India. This was a time of just incredible spiritual and philosophical energy. I mean, it was a total hotbed of new ideas. And right in the middle of this creative explosion, two major new traditions pop up, Buddhism and Jainism. And what's the one thing they both have in common? They were born from the same urgent mission, to figure out why we suffer and, more importantly, how to stop it.
All right, so let's start with Buddhism. It was founded by Siddhartha Gautama, who you probably know as the Buddha, which literally means the enlightened one. Now, the amazing thing about his teachings is that they weren't just a bunch of vague philosophical concepts. No way. He presented them like a doctor would, a super clear, practical prescription. First, a diagnosis of what's wrong, and then a step-by-step treatment plan to fix it.
So if there's a treatment, what's the cure? What's the end goal here? Well, it's a state called nirvana, and it's exactly what it sounds like, a state of being totally free from suffering. Just pure happiness and bliss. It's the ultimate end to all that pain and struggle. The big question, of course, is, how in the world do you actually get there?
Well, the Buddha's diagnosis starts with something called the Four Noble Truths, and it's this incredibly logical, powerful breakdown of the human condition. So first, he just says, look, life involves suffering. Things like getting old, getting sick, it's just part of the deal. Second, he says there's a reason for it. It comes from our cravings, our attachments, all the things we desperately want. But, and this is the really hopeful part, the third truth is that suffering can end. It's not a permanent sentence. And the fourth truth, it says there's a clear path to make that happen.
And that path, that's the treatment plan. It's called the Eightfold Path. And you've got to understand, this isn't just some simple list of do's and don'ts. It's a complete guide to living. I mean, it covers everything, from how you see the world and what your intentions are, to the way you speak and act. And crucially, it gives you the tools to train your own mind through effort, mindfulness, and concentration.
Now, that Eightfold Path can seem like a lot, so it's often broken down into 3 main pillars, which makes it way easier to grasp. First, you've got prajna, which is all about wisdom. Then there's sila, which is your ethical conduct, how you treat people. And finally, there's samadhi. And this last one, samadhi, is absolutely key for what we're talking about today. It's all about right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is the heart of meditation, the actual practice of training your mind, which, as you know, is totally central to yoga.
Okay, so now let's switch gears and talk about Jainism, which popped up right around the same time. Its founder was Mahavira, and their central goal is also liberation. But they think about it a little differently. For Jains, the idea is to free the soul, what they call the jiva, from all this karmic gunk, this sort of spiritual matter that sticks to it and weighs it down over countless lifetimes.
So the ultimate goal here is something called moksha, and you'll notice it sounds a whole lot like nirvana. It's all about getting total liberation from that endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. It's the soul finally getting back to its true nature, pure, totally aware, and blissful. Okay, so the destination is clear, but what's the map? What's the blueprint to get there?
Well, the Jain path is built on what they call the 3 jewels, or the Ratnatraya, and it's a really logical progression. It starts with right belief, basically having faith in the core principles of Jainism. That belief then leads you to right knowledge, truly understanding reality, the soul, and how karma works. And then, once you believe it and you know it, that naturally leads to right action, actually living your life based on that understanding.
So you might be asking, okay, what does right action actually look like in practice? Well, it comes down to taking the 5 vows, the Panchavrata. These are basically commitments to living an ethical life. And the absolute cornerstone, the one that everything else is built on, is the first vow, ahimsa, or non-injury. Now, for any of you who know your classical yoga, that should ring a huge bell,
That's the very first yama in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. In Jainism, everything flows from that one central commitment to nonviolence.
Okay, let's pause for a second. So we've got these two distinct paths, right? Buddhism has its Eightfold Path, Jainism has its Three Jewels. They've got different founders, some different philosophical details, but when you really start to look closely at the how, at the methods they're both prescribing, this incredibly powerful common thread starts to appear, and that thread is yoga.
I mean, just look at how they stack up side by side. Both are aiming for liberation. Call it nirvana or moksha. It's the same idea. Both give you a clear, structured path to follow. And this is so important. Both are built on a rock-solid foundation of ethics. I'm telling you, for anyone who's looked at classical yoga, that Sila pillar in Buddhism and the Panchavrata in Jainism, they are so similar to the yamas and niyamas. It's impossible to miss. So this is really the key takeaway, the main point of all of this. You have both Buddhism and Jainism setting out on their own separate quests to solve the problem of suffering, and they both independently landed on a very similar toolkit. They both realized that to find ultimate peace, you need two things. You need to live ethically, to clean up your actions, and you need intense mental discipline, using concentration and meditation to truly master your own mind.
And all of this brings us to one final, really powerful question for you to think about. I mean, these incredibly detailed roadmaps to inner peace. They were drawn up over 2,500 years ago. It just goes to show you that this search for a life without suffering is absolutely timeless. So when we look at how they both relied on ethics and mental training, what can these ancient paths teach us about our own modern search for a little peace and clarity? Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Maybe the answers we're looking for have been right there the whole time.